Right, well, let's talk right now about, where we are with our politics generally with Sir John Curtice. He's Professor of Politics at the University of Strathclyde and pretty much a sort of polling guru. Good morning to you, Sir John.
Good morning to you,
Thank
Julia.
you for joining us. Love to get your thoughts, actually, just before we talk about other issues we've invited you on, about Suella Braverman and the views on multiculturalism, views on legal, illegal migration, asylum, because there's no doubt at all that the Tories view that, you know, stopping the boats and dealing with these issues is a big issue. But we know that voters are still concerned about legal, you know, visa-led migration as well, which is at record rates.
Sure. One of the things that's not happened in the wake of Brexit is a reduction in immigration, not least because when we decided to introduce the same rules for both EU and non-EU migrants, we liberalised the rules for non-EU migrants. It's now easier for non-EU migrants to come to the UK than it was before Brexit. And that, together with what's happened in Ukraine, what's been happening in Hong Kong, and the fact that the United Kingdom still has a very tight labour market, has helped to ensure that legal immigration, indeed, on the most recently published figures, is now at a record high. Meanwhile, yes, it is indeed proving difficult to stop the boats. But I think Conservative politicians are making a bit of a mistake if they think that they can recover their party's position significantly by focusing on immigration and without actually dealing with the two issues that clearly are related to how people are likely to vote in the next election, one of which is the state of the economy and the other is the NHS. Yeah. So, for example, if we take the issue of illegal immigration, yes, there are lots of people who voted Conservative in 2019 who think that illegal immigration has gone up. Of course, there's been a lot of publicity about it. But those people who voted Conservative in 2019 who think that illegal immigration has gone up are basically no more or no less likely to have defected from the Conservatives since 2019 than those who don't think that illegal
that's interesting. So it may not be quite the vote winner en masse that they need.
But it's not the cause of the Conservatives' difficulties, therefore it's probably not going to be the route back
on its own. That's a signal of difference and divide, but it's not something on its own because, you say, cost of living, people have got a poorer standard of living. It's simple as that. And they can't get health treatment, no doubt at all. Well, look, health treatment certainly was an issue at Lib Dem conference yesterday. Ed Davey, the Lib Dem leader, one of his key pledges was a 2-month cancer treatment guarantee. I think it says quite a lot about how frankly broken our country is. The offering to let people have cancer treatment within 2 months is like oh, how exciting and well. I mean, this should be that should be the latest you should get cancer treatment in a civilised, rich country. But no one really cares what the Lib Dems are going to be offering on any policy because they're not going to be, with all due respect to Liberal Democrats and Ed Davey, they're not going to be the next government. What they care about is whether or not the Lib Dems will prop up either Labour or the Tories in the event of a hung parliament. And we've had quite a lot of different statements there, but how does what the Lib Dems and Ed Davey say about that, how does that affect their chances? Because if they say we would prop up a Labour government but not a Tory government, as is basically what's been said this week, does that affect their chances of getting the same number of votes?
Well, the honest truth is they've been saying for quite a while now that they're not willing to help prop up a Conservative government. They think that in doing that, it will help them to win over Conservative voters. And basically, the Liberal Democrats are betting the farm on the Conservative Party continuing to be as unpopular by this time next year as they are at present, i.e. deeply unpopular. And as a result, there are plenty of people who voted Conservative in 2019 who will be looking for an opposition party to vote for to express their discontent, and that in the relatively small number of constituencies where the Liberal Democrats start off in a good second place, they will choose the Liberal Democrats rather than Labour with which to express their views. So it's all essentially founded on the Conservatives' difficulties, and the NHS, as we were saying earlier, is undoubtedly one of those difficulties. British social attitudes has shown that dissatisfaction with the health service is now at a record level since the survey started measuring it way back in 1983. And so that's essentially the bet they're making. So we know they're not going to be willing to support the Conservatives also, frankly, because although they don't want to talk about it, the Liberal Democrats disagree fundamentally with the Conservatives on Brexit. Whereas, in contrast, it's clear that in some circumstances, at least, they might be willing to negotiate to some degree with Labour, though I think we're not talking about a coalition.
No.
We were talking about some kind of confidence and supply arrangement.
Yeah, because they've seen what's happened when they go into coalition. Even a government that was actually pretty popular when it turns out to the 2015 election, that coalition government, it was the Lib Dems who were punished and the Tories who weren't. Can I also just ask you about the latest polls? Because we've seen, I mean, look, we've got massive leads for Labour and Keir Starmer over Rishi Sunak and the Tories, but we've seen that poll lead drop in the last week or so in the wake, it's believed, of what Rishi Sunak had to say about watering down net zero policies. Look, his speech was very, very popular with me. It didn't go far enough, but it was a good start. It seemed to me that was a vote winner. It looks like that has been a vote winner for a lot of other people as well.
Well, maybe it has and maybe it hasn't, Julia. I think we're still somewhat uncertain about this. If you take all 5 of the opinion polls that have been conducted since Mr. Sunak's speech and take the average of that and compare it with the average of the polls beforehand, then basically the Conservatives are at 1 point from what was a particularly marked low of 26% beforehand, and Labour are broadly holding steady. One of the problems we've got here is, in particular, the one poll that showed a marked movement back towards the Conservatives was one which recorded a particularly low level of support for the Conservatives in its previous poll. And if you take the same poll and compare it with its position back at the beginning of September, you discover that Conservative support is unchanged. So I think we'll have to wait for some more evidence before whether or not that poll is unrepresentative, or whether perhaps some of the other polls, which were taken very quickly after Mr. Sunak's speech, were perhaps taken a little bit too early.
OK, and if you had to, I hate to do this to you. No, I don't. I love doing this to you. If you had to put your house on it, not 20 quid, you had to put your house on it, guaranteed, what happens in the next election? Well, A, when is it? Next year? Is it spring or autumn? There seems to be a debate about that. Yeah. Just briefly on that. And B, what's the result of that election? Right now, what do you say? Two sentences.
The answer to the timing is the last Thursday in October before the clocks go back. Okay. And so far as the outcome, there is very little chance of the Conservatives forming the next government, not simply because of the fact that they're so far behind in the polls, but also because, as we've been talking about, the Democrats won't help them to sustain a minority.
So hung parliament or a Labour majority?
That's where we're uncertain. Whether or not...
No, you've got to put your house on it right now, today, John.
No. I'll tell you who will form the next administration, but whether they will be a majority or minority administration is where the uncertainty arises.
Great to talk to you. Really appreciate you joining us there from the house that he will not bet. Sir John Curtice, 7:42.